Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen Swearingen here at the Northern Alaska Environmental Center. Welcome to Northern Voices Speaker Series with our guest, Chad Brown. I'd like to start out with a land acknowledgement, saying that we acknowledge that we work on the unceded territories of the Indigenous peoples of Alaska, and our office here is located on the traditional territory of the Lower Tanana Dene Athabascan peoples. I want to honor that ancestral and ongoing land and water stewardship and place-based knowledge of the peoples of these territories. You can go ahead and say where you are from in the chat, where you're calling in from. Pretty good group here. And just to introduce my guest, Chad Brown is an accomplished portrait and adventure photographer. He's a creative director and conservationist. He founded the nonprofit Soul River, which is an organization that brings together at-risk youth with military veterans as mentors and takes them into threatened wild spaces, providing mission-driven experiences where advocacy and outdoor education meet. He later founded Love is King, a nonprofit that focuses on welcome, access, safety, and healing in the outdoors for Black, Indigenous, and people of color and all underserved voices. Chad has also appeared on Nat Geo Wild and Discovery TV, and we're so excited to hear from him today for our Northern Voices Speaker Series. Take it away, Chad.
Why we call these deployments is because we define or look for areas that are at threat, whether it's a wildlife, freshwater, or even just the opportunity to connect with Indigenous voices that needs to be raised, in some form of awareness. But it gives us an opportunity to find these places that are at threat, and that's what makes it our ground zero. And we will pair veterans and youth up, and we will dive in those spaces, And so we will work with conservation groups, and that's doing the good work to help raise the, the awareness, et cetera. And those conservation that we work with will help us in a collaboration developing a curriculum. And that field curriculum goes into the hands of the veterans. And the veterans basically steps in and act as a mentor, a guide, and also an educator all at the same time, and using that curriculum to help engage our youth about the awareness and the issues that are happening, in that space at the given time. So, it's definitely pretty engaging, and it's an overnight nightmare of logistics of getting to some of these far off spaces, basically. But it's fulfilling at the end of the day, and it helps the veteran, gives purpose. That's why the veterans are there. It gives purpose to vets, and it also gives this mentor, a big brother and big sister to our youth. And so, our ultimate goal from a veteran standpoint is really just trying to get our youth into this leadership mindset, to foster leadership, basically. And we don't stop our deployments right there on public lands and fresh water. When we're back, the conservation groups that we're working with, we help set up meetings, basically, with congressional members on a local level all the way up to a national level in DC. And when we come back, we'll go into these meetings and we will sit down and have these conversations. And it's our youth that are spearheading and having the conversations with the congressional members. And the veterans takes a step back to give those youth, the opportunity to take a step up and know what it's like to carry that responsibility, our weight and concern on the shoulders of, of the issues that are happening. And so they step in with full throttle of leadership, supporting by the veterans. And that's really what has made Soul River today. And it's definitely, connected with many different communities. The communities make Soul River, the partnership, government relationships, and it's a really robust type of organization that I started, from building it brick by brick, basically, and so my the way I even started the organization was actually off of my handicap of me as a veteran, and fighting PTSD. And so the PTSD took me into a place where I was suicidal and I was actually homeless. And so through a lot of fight and a lot of support that came into my life, built me up, and was, and carried me the distance to where I was able to transfer myself back into society. And when I got back into society, that's when, it basically flipped a switch on me. And I was like, this is my next chapter, and this is what I need to do. And this is going to be my walk and my chapter of what, of how I'm going to move forward in my life. The organization was founded off of the sport of fly fishing. And right when I was entering back into the society, and what helped me get back into society was fly fishing. And that's, that was my medicine, basically. The docs basically told me that, to fish more, basically, and that's what I did. And so, yeah, it was quite a journey for myself in launching and building this organization to where it's at. And, and it was, yeah, anyway. So to move forward, I end up launching a new organization, and, because Soul River is moving and it's operating in its own way, and it's engaging with our youth and veterans. And so as as an outdoorsman and doing different things in the outdoors, I have come across many bad situations that has happened to me. These bad situations are 1,000 stories fold of many other minority groups out there, basically. And what happened to me, and it's not the first thing, but I was on a river fly fishing, and there was a white guy that stepped into the water, and he told me to get off his river, and I said no. And I continued to fish my section of water, and that guy basically drew his firearm and he shot at me. And so I was, very, it definitely did something to me. I was, it affected me greatly. Of course, I'm still living, and he missed. And, but I had to go through a lot of therapy about that, and trying to, get back into, my life, basically. And what took place that day on that river is something I'll never forget, and, I served my country, did what I need to do, et cetera, but I never thought I was going to have that kind of battle of confrontation like that in my life, especially on my own soil. And so through a lot of work with therapy, it led me in a different direction, and it led me in a direction to launch a new organization. And this organization is called Love is King. And I'm going to share, basically I'm going to share my screen with folks, and I'm going to talk to you about Love is King and what it's about. If you give me a second, please. Okay, so let me see. I don't hope everybody can see my screen here. I'm just going to keep my box open just right here. So Love is King, and this is just a kind of capture of activation of my organization. And I'm going to just share with you the backdrop here of Love is King. Is power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice, and justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love. This organization is inspired off of the work of Dr. Martin Luther King's work. And, and anybody who's read his work or hear his speeches, it's centered around love. It's centered around respect, dignity, grace for one another, and it's bringing people together. And, Love is King is about stepping in and stepping up for people who cannot fend for themselves or speak for themselves. It's about creating space in backcountry, wild spaces to dismantle bigotry, hate, ignorance, and racism. It's about leaning into the communities and leaning into who you know or who you may not know. But it's about embracing the love of an ethos of a warrior, basically. It's not the type of love that you'll find in a family or a relationship. It's a love that's much more stronger, that lives amongst community, and that community acts as your army, basically, that gives that person that support and that comfort and that confidence. And so just to go back to our obligation, we believe that environmental, social, and racial justice are intertextually linked, and we stand in the crosshairs of existential crisis where complacency, is a dirty word. It's our moral obligation to take action to ensure that people of color and all marginalized groups are guaranteed the freedom to roam in nature, pursuing recreational and outdoor opportunities without discrimination, ignorance, intimidation. We believe personal safety is the first priority above self. Safety is the highest priority in the outdoors for our BIPOC communities. This is a humanitarian movement that mobilizes Love is King volunteers to step forward to help facilitate and safe experiences for all. Our actions and presence will encourage BIPOC participation and ignite meaningful conversations, creating new perspectives, expectations, and experiences. We facilitate conflict resolution through love, empathy, patience, and deep sense of personal responsibility. We ensure people of color personal stories, outdoor experiences, history, culture, and leadership are represented, valued, and celebrated. We exist because the BIPOC community needs a voice and an active advocate. Talk is cheap to ensure the freedom to roam is unhindered, unlimited, and unforgettable. We say no to confrontation, complacency, inequality, ignorance, intimidation, judgment, closed-mindedness, fear, and status quo. And we say yes to the freedom to roam. Going in our 2022 programs activation, I'll share, we have 3 activations, our initiatives, how you want to call that, and centered around participation, education, inspiration, and encourage. This Love is King organization is an actionable platform. It's a platform after DEI training. It's not a DEI organization or a course that you take. This is something that you go through when you're going through DEI and you say, okay, what's next? This is an actionable platform. And what I share with folks with this organization on an actionable platform, the first one basically is stalwarts of safety. It's an ambassador to build of love, urgency, and purpose. We truly believe that Love is King, as SOS ambassadors lead with love, patience, and empathy. The lead by example of Martin Luther King Jr. lived and died by. Living and leading with love, our SOS ambassadors will be committed to creating a reimagined outdoor environment and experience for BIPOC participation. Our SOS ambassadors will be present and engaged and become visual and living symbol and elevate safety, builds community and confidence. We understand that changing behaviors will take time, but we believe that being present, mindful, and engaged will ignite a change in biases, perception, and behavior. We believe in the power of love. We're starting right here in Portland, Oregon, and been using Oregon basically as a really good, strong pilot from last year. And now we're going into this year, and we have been connecting with brands, agencies, and conservation groups, et cetera. And so we are basically working with, the state level, where the bill of the what's called the, I'm sorry, what's the bill? I forgot the name of that bill. I'm sorry. It's the 289 bill. Sorry, the 289 bill. And we have adopted that into our process of work with the SOS. And as I move forward, we're trying to establish kind of like this safe sanctuary. Of course, we can't make the outdoors 100% safe, and that's not the idea. The idea is to raise the awareness through many folks and people and brands and partners who believes that safety is needed to be put in place for BIPOC, LGBTQ, handicap, women, etc. And by putting that in place is raising that awareness and building that community of stalwarts of safety in the outdoors. And so we have companies like Columbia that is getting on board to help advocate the importance of this. The more that we can advocate and share as a community, the more safe spaces becomes much more easier for individuals or BIPOC and LGBTQ groups that can be able to roam further and bolder beyond the safe grounds of a park. They can be able to, get into the wild, which we want everybody to be able to explore that. And so we move more into trying to establish signage, but we're working right here in the state of Oregon and, put up, stalwarts of safety. And how does that look? As I shared with you earlier with the SB 289, Let Freedom Roam bill, which is something that Columbia Sportswear is adopting into their culture. And they're helping with this, move forward along with a couple other brands of King Footwear, et cetera. Going to our second activation of 2022 to share with you, which is called Advanced Leadership Operation Roam. We launched this initiative last year and it was a success. Conservation partners that was involved with this was amazing support. But I can give you a little bit of background of what's going on here. This is about working with conservation groups that are looking to move forward, and moving forward is opening up conservation spaces on the other side of the coin, not the recreation, but more on the advocacy side, and wanting to open that up for more diverse voices to step in. So we work with conservation groups who are looking for new diverse voices. And basically we put together teams, and these teams will go into these lands, these public lands, fresh water, and this will be a very fast track ramp of leadership / advocacy within that conservation space. And so we're fostering adult professionals of BIPOC that comes from different areas of the communities around the US, and we put them into a team and these BIPOCs will sign up or apply. And these are BIPOC folks that wants to be more in that conservation space. It's just they don't know how to navigate into those spaces. And so we will work with the conservation group and put that team together, and we'll help them navigate that. But the first thing is that before you can navigate about our public lands and our fresh water, you need to put some time in and understand what's going on. And so we will basically send a team like to the Arctic, and they will basically, before they go to the Arctic, they will set up with stakeholder meetings, and they will have stakeholder meetings from a government side, indigenous, conservation group, et cetera, or even local. And then they will embark on a small 2-week grit, rucking type of journey into that space. And, and it's not glorified to them. A lot of them doesn't have the experience in backcountry, et cetera, but they're guided, but at the same time, they're all set up for success, but they have to work for that success as well. It's a little bit grit, and they have to put some effort in to understand what that is, and understand about the land, et cetera. And then when they come out, that team becomes part of that conservation group's arm. They're strong arm basically. So when that conservation group is doing a work of advocacy and they're looking to, maybe speak to a senator or get some signature signed or write a letter, etc. They can lean in that team, and that team basically can do that kind of work to help to support the campaign and the work that conservation group is doing. So basically, I'll read this out. Advanced Leadership, Environmental, and Social Justice is a combination of Operation Rome, and it's a classroom. It's an Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. That's what we did last year. And the mission is to connect Black, Indigenous, and people of color, individuals who would normally not have immediate stake in each other's interests, culture, and future, so they can find common ground and coverage their movements for the greater good. The more we connect and collaborate, and the more empathetic equity we build, we leverage an empathetic equity to tackle both environmental and social justice and empower a new generation of change makers. And to move forward, you'll see some of the last year of Operation Rome leaders. And these are leaders from different professional spaces. And, and it was a really amazing experience for them. And they were tagged with the Forest Park Conservancy Group is who they worked with. And today, half of them are actually involved with the Forest Park Conservancy Group, and 2 of them are actually starting their own businesses in conservation, basically. And you'll see a couple more leaders here that was also tied with the Arctic, that were up in the Arctic, and now they were tied to the Alaska Wilderness League and the Alaska Wilderness League on this one as well, which was awesome. You're looking at, again, these professional, this is really interesting because a lot of these people that you're looking at are people that are not in the conservation space, but they want to be in a conservation space, but their professions is really interesting. We have professional photographers. If you see my arrow here, I'd like to highlight Dudley. He's a sought after, one of the leading African-American wildlife photographers in the United States. His work has been all over in encyclopedias with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, national parks, etc. Again, we're talking about professional leaders that are looking to engage, but not for sure how to navigate. We have a hip hop artist that came out with this, nationally known hip hop artist. Again, he doesn't fit the bill of what you think conservation looks like, but he has that interest of wanting to be in conservation and wanting to support public lands, et cetera. But the way he packaged conservation to the public is very unique and different compared to traditional conservations, and so it's really an interesting type of initiative that we're doing here. And you'll see more of the images out in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, hiking in basically on the start of their journey. This is also up in the Arctic. We're not on the refuge. We're actually up there by, I believe, Galbraith Lake area, and and doing some fly fishing, which was awesome. Amazing. Again, leaders. The lady in the yellow, she's an entrepreneur, business owner out of New York, and then the young lady right behind me, she's a biologist. And then another lady right on the side with the yellow hat. She is another entrepreneur out of Utah, and she has her own business as well. And now these three they're all back into their own space, but they're working a lot with the Alaska Wilderness League. And Alaska Wilderness League is leaning into them basically. And so now they've been up to the Arctic, and now they're also part of those voices, of diverse voices that help speak and raise the awareness of the Arctic refuge. Basically, we're making base camp here. Again, a lot of folks never slept in the outdoors. This is the first time, and it was really an interesting experience. And we're down here, on the riverbank, actually on the lake, Galbraith Lake area, and I'm teaching everybody how to fly fish and going after the lake trout there, basically. This was an interesting experience, and so, this is up at the Galbraith camp area. Actually, yes, I think so. But we were, I'm bringing a lot of these, BIPOC leaders into these wild spaces, along with youth, along with veterans. And go back to my story that I'll share with everybody about the engagement of what happened to me on the water when I got shot at. These stories, like I said before, are 1,000 times fold of many other people's stories. And so another story here, and we were here on the campground, and I get approached by, two white guys with firearms, and so they approached me. They didn't immediately identify themselves. And so it put everybody, on the red flag here. And, you dealing with, there's this, yes, people have sidearms in the backcountry. I carry as well, license, etc. But to a lot of people of color, is not used to that. That's not culture. That's not their culture, etc. And plus, being in the outdoors unarmed and being in an open space makes you even much more vulnerable. So seeing two white guys come up with sidearms and not identifying themselves sets off red flags. So as we move forward, I step and engage with the officers. And, them at first found out that they were officers in our conversation, and they wanted to know what we were doing. And, and because they actually approached it because there was something on the radio went out that a hunter basically killed a caribou wrongfully. And they thought that was us. Of course it wasn't. And, it's, BIPOC folks out here around the campfire, et cetera, doing our thing. And after, over a course of conversation having with the officers and everything, they knew it wasn't us. We basically shook hands, et cetera. It also gave me an opportunity to share about Love is King and the work that we do and why we are here and what we're doing. And so they appreciated that, even more. And so later they left, and then they came back probably 3 or 4 hours later, and I'm trying to figure out, well, what's going on now? So I approached them, and this was what happened. They caught the guy and they confiscated the caribou, and they asked me if I wanted the caribou. And I said yes. And they treated it as an educational thing. They wrote it up and they gave it to me. And so I went ahead and basically said, okay, well, I'm going to show everybody how to field dress an animal right here on the spot, and that was another experience of these BIPOC leaders learning and watching how this unfolds, right? There was a lot of fear. I mean, even some of, some of the guys felt uncomfortable. The girls, they felt uncomfortable. There were some tears, seeing a dead animal. No one's never seen that. It was a shock amongst all of them, and but we talked through it. We walked through it. It was we were lucky because we had on the team, there was an indigenous young man. And, I asked him, could he basically bless this? And, we talked to the group and I said, well, we're going to turn this around. Yes, it was wrongly done, but we're going to turn this around. And I leaned into one of the indigenous young man and said, do you mind, doing a blessing for this, et cetera? And he did a blessing. And we basically, turned this around into a better experience, and we felt like we served the animal well, respected the animal, and so it was quite an experience for this team here to experience something like that on the land, and had an opportunity to eat caribou right there on an open fire. So some of the gear that we, again, fly fishing outfit, and moving forward, you see some of the images. Carrying, one of the alpaca rafts to the water here. In some of our base camp images. And then here's an awesome shot of another team that you saw earlier, but this is a different team of BIPOC leaders, all professionals. Dudley was one of them I mentioned. And we got the hip hop artists here. And it was a really amazing experience for them, and for everyone, actually. Part of while we're out there, we do have our meetings. And again, we set up meetings, stakeholders, Bernadette, she met with the team and, and shared a lens from a Gwich'in standpoint about the refuge and the issues, et cetera. And everybody was very grateful, and it was also full engaging. And this is, again, another way of building advocacy leadership into more diverse voices, et cetera. You know, and of course, Bernadette, you know, love her to death and the work that she does here. I decided to throw a pitch in there. So our one of the other our initiatives is Stories Over Silence. This is really much more centered around BIPOC telling their stories, and you can find this on our website, telling their stories in their own time, you know, and this gives the opportunity to not have to deal with the charge. And the charge is dealing with Caucasian folks that's in denial, and that will basically project that denial onto a BIPOC's, you know, experience. And it's a real experience. And so instead of, you know, those BIPOC leaders or many folks talking about it and sharing it, so that doesn't work, or, racism doesn't exist in the outdoors. We only see green in the outdoors, or, you know, are you serious? Do you really think that's what that guy was really doing? That kind of stuff, which makes people feel uncomfortable, especially if they're in the space of feeling, feeling comfortable to share their stories and to be open with that. Our society is not really that wired that greatly to allow open space for people to feel comfortable to speak. We always have an alpha in those spaces. And when you have an alpha in those spaces, just like in the dynamics in the outdoors, et cetera, what happens is that it causes others to not speak up, and it's just that dynamic. And so what we try to do is erase that kind of dynamic and allow BIPOCs who are willing to share their stories. They'll do a video recording of themselves and talk, and you can sit there in your own time and you can actually be able to listen, and you can, listen in your own space and think about that instead of having to engage that way. And so silence over stories is one of our ways of putting these experiences out for people to be able to learn, educate and try to find that grace and that understanding around what's happening in Black and brown people's lives, right? And what they are experiencing, Yes, you don't walk that walk of what they're walking, et cetera, but just learning, just adapting and sitting with what they're saying is very, very important. And that's really what a lot of BIPOC folks want people to understand and know, because we do come from different walks of life. And, especially, and even if we talk about generational fear, that's something that Caucasian people will never experience, but, when you bring that diversity into those spaces, there's different experiences. And that's the beauty and the fabric of our country is community, and us be able to come together and listen to one another without the charge. And so Stories Over Silence is something that we do on a regular basis, and you can find that on the Love is King website. And then we have our monthly heritage events. And, from the last one is, this gives us an opportunity of Love is King to live live around holidays on a calendar basis. And where we do is that each holiday, like the LGBTQ, the Black History Month, Native American, Veterans Day, we can take advantage of those holidays, and we bridge those holidays into an outdoor setting, an easy bridge in and easy access for communities of all that have that fear in the outdoors. They can be able to step into a festive celebration, storytelling of art, etc., in the outdoors, and give people the opportunity to feel comfortable and enjoy, and with families, etc. And so we engage with these heritage events on a monthly basis, and we work with many different partners and groups, and also government as well. Again, you'll see the Veterans Day hike that we did past Veterans Day, called Carry the Weight, RUC 22. I read this out to folks. This is not a veteran issue. It's a community issue that doesn't discriminate. It impacts us all. RUC 22 experiences engages the entire community to stand beside our fellow veterans. Participants hike or walk and carry the weight of 22 pounds. in remembrance of our brothers and sisters and raise awareness of veteran suicide. Every day, 22 veterans lose their battle to post-traumatic stress on American soul, plus more. RUC 22 Veteran Suicide Awareness Hike is a natural coming together of the community and solidarity and the solitude of nature. RUC 22 is a healing outdoor experience that's one of Love is King's monthly heritage event series. The heritage events promotes the healing, the power of nature, celebrate cultural differences, and make it outdoor environment safe and accessible for all. And so this was an awesome event. 300 people showed up, if I'm not mistaken, and it was more than what we expected. And people showed up, and we basically lined the trail, with veteran flags and, Navy, et cetera, like that. And people brought their rucksack, their backpacks. Columbia Sportswear were there. They put food in everybody's backpack up to 22 pounds, and people hiked 22 pounds of food in their backpack on a slow hike, et cetera, in solidarity. And then when people came back off the trail, they were able to give that food to the food bank that went to a veteran organization to help feed the homeless veterans. And it was an amazing experience. The awesome about this is that it brought people into the outdoors, and it brought more people from different communities, even communities of color, to come out into the outdoors in this kind of exercise. And so we host these kind of events all over. We're doing the Black History one, which I didn't have in here, but I'll share with you. But what we're doing on the 26th, next Saturday, we got permit from the city to barricade the bridge in Portland, the St. John's Bridge. We are basically, Love is King is taking over the entire bridge, and we're turning that bridge and recreating the March on Selma and the Martin Luther King March on Selma. And we're going to be, speakers going to be out there. We're bringing out the gospel choir on the bridge. And here's the unique thing. This march is going to go across the bridge and into the trail. It's going to end on the trail system in the outdoors. And so that's how this is how these kind of out of the box, thinking creative and conceptual of how we can connect people to nature around different type of holidays, celebrating storytelling, engaging folks, bringing families out, etc., and hitting the trail, enjoying in their own way, basically. And so we do these for LGBTQ, Native American, all throughout the year, basically. We're doing it. And as you see, here's some images from the past event from RUC 22, Carry the Weight. It was a great day, great experience. How we work together, basically. And here's some different type of advertisements of how we market Love is King on our heritage events. We got the Hispanic heritage, the Women's History Month, the Native American. And so we putting these out on our Instagram, and it brings community together, and so this is another way of how we engage community to connect to nature in a historical, festive, storytelling way, where it allows people to feel comfortable, and it creates a bias-free zone, and to know that you're out there with other folks and like-minded folks around love and support, basically. And that comes to the end of my presentation of the work that I do with Love is King, and me. Yeah, and then the rest of the work that I do, of course, is Chad Brown, and that was early, which is tied with TV and photography. I do a lot of photography and on our lands, and a lot of stylized portrait photography with indigenous folks who I connect with, whether it's the Nubian or the Gwich'in people, etc. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh man, that was wonderful. Yeah, just big applause. And I think we do have time for questions. If anyone, I haven't seen any in the chat, but if anyone wants to, let's see here.
Oh, I see that. Thank you, Vicki. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, I've actually have never personally been in our National Wildlife Refuge, but it just sounds so inspiring. And I'm just kind of curious about what, I guess, what was your first, just like, what made you decide to go there for the first time, and what was that experience like personally for you?
Um, you know, I would say what drew me there is actually my connection with indigenous communities. And when just like a lot of us vets, and where we're suffering at PTSD, uh, I what helped me through my process was um, a gentleman who's a brother of mine, and he's from the Quinault Nation. And and so through my healing process, he took me in and helped me through my process of healing and connecting with his family. But what was also interesting is that I received my first welcome home that I'd never received in my life, but just like a lot of vets coming back. And as he said to me, in indigenous culture, when a warrior comes back, it's the community that helps heal that warrior back. There's a lot of us vets that comes back home and don't know how to heal and don't have a community. And a lot of people don't know how to support a vet at the same time, but I found my healing in my walk and my process with my brother, indigenous brother. And so ever since then, I think I've always had this allegiance to indigenous people, and they understand the power of nature and how that heals the soul, a troubled mind. And so I've been, through my organization, I've been doing a lot of work with vets and bringing them back to indigenous communities. And they also receive that kind of welcome home and that healing as well. And so through my work, a lot of my work, it has led me of crossing paths with Alaska Awareness League, and through Alaska Awareness League, it launched my path in front of Bernadette. And when I connected with Bernadette and started to develop a relationship with her and learning a lot, that deepened my interest more into witching. So I found myself booking a flight up to the Arctic Village myself, and knocking on the door and connecting with the council members and sitting down, and learning and spending time with them, and so it's really interesting because a lot of us vets has a hard time getting accepted in our own society. But when we go into indigenous cultures, the door is wide open and they accept warriors, and they know how to they just give us that respect and understand where we're coming from. And also what's beautiful about that is connecting with fellow brothers of arms who are indigenous brothers and sisters that are in those communities. And that deepens a serious bond amongst the veteran community, And so the draw of me going back to the refuge is the draw of me understanding and knowing that I'm going back home, just as much as the Gwich'in says, this is where life begins when you're referring to the coastal grounds, right? The birthing grounds, et cetera, and I get that and I understand that. And so a lot of veterans comes back up that way, not just me anymore. It used to be me, but a lot of veterans still comes up there to this day of connecting back with the Gwich'in, et cetera, of just connecting back to the land, connecting back home. And it's a safe space for them. And it's a safe space for me. And it's what keeps me going back up all the time. So me making my way back up is also my social responsibility of bringing more folks into that space, and sharing that space and respecting that space. But yeah,
that is really beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, and that kind of leads, another question is, how do you recruit your participants? Or I think another way is like, how does someone join? I know a lot of us probably know veterans and BIPOC people.
Yeah.
What's that process?
Yeah, so I'll start up with Soul River Inc. Soul River Inc.'s applications, we have applications that goes up from January 1 to they just ended, I believe, January the 30th, if I'm not mistaken. And there's 3 portals. It's veterans, volunteers, and youth. And, we definitely lean into a lot of volunteers, especially volunteers who has skill sets of education, science background, just conservation work, etc. And so when those applications come out, we have interviews. Right now, we just finished our interviews actually with youth veterans and volunteers, and we're about to go into our orientation. The youngest of youth is between 14 to 19. And so all veterans have to have an honorable discharge, number 1. And if they're working on their PTSD and TBI, then that's just us having an understanding and also connecting with their therapist as well to understand where they at basically before we make that decision and everything like that. But yeah, so that's with that. With Love is King, that is ongoing, and there's so many different supportive opportunities for volunteers to step in. It's a community type of organization. It leans into its partners, government, conservation groups, etc. And then there's those in between support of many volunteers stepping in to help in the support and the advocacy of making sure that safe spaces in backcountry, is there for all people, and so Love is King has a lot of different opportunities for many volunteers, and it's open year round that you can also go online and apply. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to try to just do like 3 more minutes for questions because I have some announcements too. But do most of your deployments in the Arctic, or are there other imperiled or wild spaces in which to roam?
All of my deployments in Soul River, the leadership deployments is in the Arctic. But we have deployments down in Florida, Oregon, all over, basically, Utah. We work with the Navajo folks down there as well. But yeah, the Arctic is more focused more for the leadership youth, the youth that's been in the program for a good 2 years, and they're stepping to more leadership. And so that's much more focused around youth and veterans up there. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that answered another question there about if you connect with other Indigenous people besides in Gwich'in. And then also the Arctic Refuge is a big place. Where did you visit first? What part?
The first place I went to was I don't know exact location, but I'll say we were dropped off on the Ivashak River, a little bit. I would say maybe I'm going to say probably like 8-9 miles in on the refuge along the North Slope area, and then we paddled out of that basically on the Ivashak River. That was the first place that we went to, which was a pretty phenomenal place. It was really awesome. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Vicky's going off mute. Let's see. One last. Will the march in Portland be recorded, and where to find it?
Yeah, you can. We're going to be going live with the march on the Love is King Instagram. And so at 9 o'clock Saturday morning on the 26th, you can just basically go to Love is King, and you will be able to watch the march live through Instagram Live.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you, Chad, so much. This has been really fantastic. And yeah, looking forward to keeping track of all that's going on. The Northern Center has a few things coming up. Our next event is March 3rd. It's just going to be a program update, sort of like an informal check-in with the program staff. So you can actually, I'm going to put in the chat, northern.org/events is where you can sign up for that. And that'll be a chance for anyone to ask questions of us, of the Northern Center staff, to hear what we're up to. We'll also share some of our legislative updates and different actions coming up. So thank you everyone for coming. This has been great. Oh, I'm going to stop recording now.